Hi guys, how's it going? So right now we're going to talk about combining like terms and how this works, okay? So when we combine like terms, there's some things we have to understand about this, okay? Some rules before we go ahead. We have to understand that when we add positives and negatives, right? So let's say I'm adding a positive and a negative, I have to subtract those from each other, okay? And we'll talk about that in a little bit. When I'm combining two negatives, we're going to add those. And when I'm combining two positives, I'm going to also add those, okay? So this one's subtract, this one's add, and this one is also add. Okay, and let's talk about why that works in a little bit, okay? Actually, let's do that right now. Let's say I have these guys right here, and these guys are all positives, right? And we're going to make our positives pink, just like that. And now let's say I have two negatives, okay? These guys are yellow. Now, since they're not the same color, right, and you have to remember this too, our multiplication rules aren't the same, right? Since these aren't the same colors, they don't really get along, right? They're going to actually, I like to call it they fight each other, okay? So since we have three positives and two negatives, we have to treat this as subtraction. Now tell yourself, if these guys got in a fight, who would win, right? I would say the positives won because they have more guys, because 3 is more than 2, right? So but the thing is, not all these guys are going to make it after the fight. So when he fights this guy gets eliminated, and he gets eliminated. So now we're down to 2 and 1. So this guy fights, and this guy gets eliminated. Now this is no longer existing anymore. This is gone, okay? And these two guys are gone. So that only leaves how many positives left? That's only one positive left. Okay, so when you combine 3 and a negative 2, you get a positive 1 left over. And the reason why is because positives and negatives subtract. So for example, a bigger problem. Let's say we have negative 10 and we're trying to combine that with a positive 5. Ask yourself, is there more negatives or more positives? And I won't draw the symbols this time. There's more negatives because 10 is more than 5. Okay. And since the symbols are different, do I add or subtract? I'm going to subtract this time. So let's see here. I know who's going to win. The negatives win. So I'm going to put a negative symbol. I know it's a negative answer. Now I just subtract. Just ignore that negative symbol for a little bit. 10 minus 5 is 5. So you put a negative 5 right here, and that's what you get when you combine these two guys. Okay? Now, let's do this. We're going to go down right here, and let's draw a little box so we don't get confused. We're looking at this little box. Let's say I have a negative 2 and a net minus a negative 2. Now think about this. I have two negatives here and two more negatives here, right? And I'll color code them right now. Now, quick question. If they're the same symbol and color, are they going to really want to fight each other or get together and party, right? And have a little like pizza party or something. So let's look right here at my rules. Two negatives. Add. Oh, they add. Okay. So that obviously has to be a positive 4, right? Because you have to think about the multiplication rules. A negative and negative make a positive. Pause right there. That's not, we can't think that way. Multiplication and adding is completely different, okay? So we have two negatives. Think about it this way. Do we get more negatives or do we get more positives? Well, there's 4 negatives total, so... Oh, that means we have 4 negatives, right? Boom. So that's why you add them. So you get negative 4, because look, there's 1, 2, 3, 4 negatives, so you combine those. So instead of negative 2 minus 2, it becomes a negative 4. Okay? And then, just in case you don't know this, I'm not going to assume you know everything. A 2 combined with a positive 2, you have two positives, right? On both sides. Well, positives to put together make more positives, right? How many positives are there? There's 4. Oh, so it's a 4 positive. Okay, you guys see how that works? Now let's make this a little bit more difficult. Okay, so let's say we have our equations in class. So you get this. You get 2x, and I'm not even going to be worried right now about, oops, sorry, my camera turned off. I'm not going to be worried right now about solving equations, but I'm going to make it look like an equation because that's what you're going to see in class. So we get 2x plus 4x, I'm sorry, 2x plus 2 plus 4x plus 3 equals, let's just put a 10 over here. Okay, so rule number 1, I always like to make a line right here. I always make that a habit because that line represents a big wall. And you can't cross that wall. You have a left side of the wall. You also have a right side. And over here on the left side, there's a bunch of numbers, and that can be pretty intimidating. So what we have to do is kind of make those numbers look a little bit more simple, right? Just kind of like up here. Instead of having negative 2 minus 2, we can turn that to a negative 4. And instead of a 2 plus 2, we can also turn that to a 4. So I'm going to look at these guys, and anytime I see the letter X, I'm going to use a pink highlighter. And I'm going to highlight that right there. So that's an X, so I highlight it. That's a positive 2 because I'm looking at the symbol in front, and that's not an X, so I'm not going to do anything with that. Now, this is a positive 4x because look at the symbol in front. There's a plus. Now, that has an X, so I'm going to make that pink, just like that. And I'm also going to include the plus symbol so I know what kind of symbol it is. Now, there's a plus 3. Well, that's not an X. So now let's make all the numbers yellow. So what kind of 2 is that? Before I do it, it's at a positive negative 2. And how do you know that? Just think about that to yourself for a second in your head. If you said positive 2, good job, because look at the symbol in front. That's a positive 2. Now, that's a 4x. We already established that. What kind of 3 is that, positive or negative? Ask yourself that. That's a positive. Nice. Okay, so we're going to highlight him just like that. And look at this 10 over here. Do I need to highlight him right now? No, because remember, the wall is going to separate these guys. So I don't have to worry about the right side. So act like it's not there. And, I'll do this. Let's just cover him up. Act like he doesn't even exist. You're just focused on these guys right here. Okay? Because if you look at the whole picture, you just may confuse yourself, and that's not good. And my phone might get in my way of writing, so let's just do this instead. There you go. Okay? Now, actually, how about this? Get creative here. There we go. Okay. The equals 10 doesn't exist for now, okay? Let's just worry about these guys. So my goal is to combine the guys who want to get together. Now, if you're pink, that means you're an X. And just like up here, instead of doing a 2x and a positive 4x, I can put these together and make one thing. So 2x and 4 positives, right? So 2 positives and 4 positives. And when they're both positive, you got to add them together. So 2 and 4 will make us 6. Now pause. Am I missing something? Ask yourself, what am I missing? Oh, wow, they're x's, right? So I got to put the x there. Don't forget to put this x because these have x's. So now that makes a 6x. So I combine these two guys. Now look right here. You have a positive 2 and a positive 3. So they're both positives, so I'm going to combine them. And since they're positives, I got to put the positive sign here, a plus, and add them. 2 plus 3 is 5. And now, look over here. You got to write what didn't change. The equal sign. I like to, even though these are far away, and I kind of wrote that wrong, always put the equal sign on the wall so you don't forget where it's at. And did the 10 change? It did not. So boom, there you go. And that's how you combine like terms. Now, let's do another one. But this time, I'm going to include some negative and positive, so that way you can kind of practice that. So let's kind of use the same numbers, but this time I'm going to make some negative. So I get a 2x, but let's make him a negative. And we're going to do the positive 2 again. And instead of a positive 4x, let's also do a negative. You see how it's a negative? I put a minus there instead. And over here, we have a 3, so I'm going to make him negative. Okay? So I'm going to highlight the x's again. And I'm highlighting the x's because, guess what? They want to get together, right? Now, what I do wrong right here? Anybody see what I did wrong? Look at this, what I do. I highlighted the 4x here, but did I only highlight the 4x here? I also highlighted the symbol in front, right? Ooh, did you notice that? If you did, good job. Try to do that to yourself. Capture that mistake, right? So I got negative 2x and a negative 4x. And I got a positive 2 because look at the symbol in front. And what kind of 3 is that? If you said negative 3 in your head, good job. That's a negative 3. Okay. So let's do this. A negative 2x and a negative 4x. Let's combine these guys first. Now think about that. Are these symbols the same or different? Right? Oh, wow, wait. The symbols are the same. So do they want to get together or do they want to fight? Symbols are the same, so they probably want to get together. Okay. So you get to acknowledge now, since they're both negatives, right? You got to make sure you put that negative symbol first. Okay? Now, 2 negatives here and 4 negatives here. How many negatives total? Right? And that gives you a 6 total negatives just like that. So you have negative 6x now. Good job. Okay. Now pause. Are you done? No, you're not, because look right here. You have a plus 2 and a negative 3. Okay, now you got to combine him and him now. Okay? But this one's a little bit different. What kind of 2 is that? It's a positive. What kind of 3 is that? That's a negative. Okay, positive negatives. Are they going to combine or are they going to have to fight each other? They're gonna, and, you know, if you said fight each other, good job. So him and him are going to have a little fight. And you got to ask yourself, who's going to win? Who's the bigger, well, I shouldn't say bigger, but who has more? The positives or the negatives? Now, if you said the negatives do, good job. And because there's 3 negatives and 2 positives. Now do this. So, do I need a plus or minus symbol since the negatives win? If you said a negative symbol, good job. Just like that, good job. Okay, so I got 3 negatives and 2 positives. Subtract it and put the bigger number on top. 3 minus 2 is 1. Or you could do this if you want. Cross those out, there's 1 left over. So the negatives went by 1. Okay, and that's how that would look right there. If you have any questions, leave them in the comment section. I would be more than happy to help you. Thank you very much for watching.